What do we need to learn or do differently in order to sustain vital, relevant, and effective ministry?
I think we've got to get back on the ground and get out of our offices, get out of our pews. Sunday morning should be the time where we get what we need so we can go out. And I think that the activity needs to be more Monday through Saturday of how we are advancing the mission of Jesus, how we are helping people experience Jesus' love, how we are telling the story of what God has done in Jesus and inviting people into it. That's got to increase. The vigor has got to return, the passion to invite people to the table, because the Holy Spirit is pursuing every single person on the planet. We've got to get back to that passion. And in some ways, it does require very specific people, I think, being involved in the business side of the church. I love the business side of the church, but I think we're too preoccupied with it. And some of that preoccupation, I think, is that maybe there are too many people involved in it. And that's a lot to unpack. But I do think that we need strong foundation to do ministry. But I think the encouragement needs to be getting people out into the world, getting people out into the field. And so the encouragement, the compelling vision needs to go back to individuals on the ground, go back to asking the question, what do people who are hard of hearing really need from the church? And then people going there, centering their needs and desires and their hopes and concerns. And somebody in a room somewhere working on the finances to make that happen. But we don't all need to be doing that. We need to free people up to be involved in ministry again, on the ground where the people are. And this is what I experienced in campus ministry. My privilege as a campus minister is that my job really is to be where the students are. My job is not to be in an office somewhere, cooped up, waiting for students to come to me. My job is to go to where the students are. And when I talk to my clergy friends, they want to do that kind of ministry as well, but they feel like they have to stay in the office. And man, whatever we can do to get the clergy out of the office, and whatever we can do to get the laity out of the pews and on the ground, walking in on Sunday with our hands dirty because we've been out there in the world doing the work. Whatever we can do to make that happen, I think leads us into a hopeful future.
What a wonderful vision of the church. So let me push you a little bit. You mentioned the business side of things. What are the priorities that must guide what we stop doing, what we start doing, and what we continue doing in the next year or so? And I really want you to start with, what do we stop doing?
I think that there is a sense that everybody's got to see the church the same way. I think we've got to stop that. I think we've got to stop trying to legislate agreement. I think we've got to stop using the institutional functions of the church to make people do things or go in a certain direction. So that's one of the things I think we've got to stop. I think we've wasted a lot of energy trying to get people on the same page. Now, with that said, that also means that we have to create some freedom. We've got to allow people to be on their journey. And I know that this is hard if all you want is a convergent, homogenous church. But again, I don't think that's the world we live in, and I don't think that's the church we have. So I think we've got to stop trying to create that church. That's just not the church that we've been given. I also think that we've got to stop, and in some ways COVID has accelerated this. We've got to stop thinking that everything needs to be by the book. And I'm not talking about policies to keep people safe. I'm not talking about GAP which is general accepted accounting practices. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about ministry. I'm talking about the way that we serve people. We don't have to do the same things we did last calendar year. We don't have to continue to approach certain things like small groups the same way. We can actually rethink them. We need to stop thinking that Sunday morning is the best time for worship. And I don't want to call it tradition because I'm not trying to dismiss where we've come from. But where we've come from are people who said, you know what? Only doing ministry inside the Anglican church isn't working. Somebody needs to stand on a grave in the middle of a city and preach the gospel. That's the energy that we want to adopt, which means that we have to stop limiting ourselves to what's always been.
What do we start doing and what do we continue doing in the next year?
Yeah. I think we start receiving each other. I think that's one piece, that we really started receiving each other as a connection, a holy connection, and not receiving each other as in camps and positions. I think we do have to start receiving each other. That's work for everybody to do. And some of that is going to be the inner work of removing bias, the inner work of dealing with ways of how we lead and how we interact with people. I do think we've got to start receiving each other. And I think that means taking people's fears seriously about being received and doing what we need to do to alleviate those fears. When someone's afraid to talk in church, that's a problem for us. When someone's afraid to say what they think in a group of Wesleyan Christians, that is a problem for us. And so what we want to start doing is getting to those relational issues. Because I do believe that in a divergent culture, everything rises and falls on relationship, not on winning and losing, and not even on influence. Everything rises and falls on relationship. So I think we've got to start investing in relationships more and doing what we need to do to make sure that part of our value system is the connection. That's one thing I want to invite us to start doing. I want to invite us to start releasing people to really try new things in ministry, to endorse new ideas around ministry. We've got in Florida, as well as the other conferences, the Fresh Expressions movement, which honestly has some ideas that I'm like, really? But here's the deal. We will never know how God is moving in a space until we get in there. We will never know what God's doing with people who are in their kayaks on the St. Johns River until we start dropping in there. We will, and I can tell you this personally, you will not know what God's doing in the craft beer scene here in Jacksonville until you get in it, until you step into that space. And so we've got to free people up to do new kinds of ministry and new ways for new people. That's one thing we've got to start doing, and we've got to be okay when things don't happen the way they've always happened. And I think we've got to start rethinking what our metrics are. And again, this is where I am not so much concerned about how many people are in a congregation on Sunday. I'm really concerned with how many people get pastoral care quickly. How many people know that there is a person in the church that's a little further along on their spiritual journey that they could reach out to, and within a couple of days, they get some connection. They get someone praying for them and listening to them and listening to their story and counting it as sacred. That's the stuff I'm interested in. I'm not so much interested in how many small groups you've got. I'm interested in how many people, particularly lay people, are discerning their call, the reason why God put them on the planet, and they are saying, yep, this is the call I've been given. And like Paul says to Timothy, it is my job to stir up my gift and to be faithful with this thing that I've been entrusted. Those are the things that I want to see us lean into when it comes to metrics. How many people are in a room? I mean, in the age of COVID, that's a bad metric anyway. But even before, it probably wasn't a great metric either. It probably gave us a story that wasn't really true. And I think all of this really comes down to the ways that United Methodism may need to go back to a more in-person, and please don't hear me say in-person as a knock to social distancing and quarantine. We ain't there yet, but we need to go back to this in-person, one-on-one, direct pastoral understanding where people with pastoral leadership know their people by name and know where they are. And that may mean that we need more people in pastoral leadership than less. But I think that those are things that we should start doing.